Hello, good morning, good afternoon, whatever time you're watching this video at, I don't know. I hope you're having a good day. I hope we were able to get a lot out of last week's lesson that I put out. This week we're just going to be adding on to it. I will be posting the PDFs for your teachers to give you guys if you go ahead and ask them for it. It'll have all the lip slurs on one page if you guys feel like using those at home. Before we get started, before we get to playing, I'm going to do some basic breathing and basic buzzing exercises. Remember, quality breathing is like the super biggest, most important thing in all of wind instrument playing. If we don't have good breathing quality, then our sound is not going to be very good. So we need to make sure we focus on how we are breathing. So remember, when we breathe, we try to feel like we're filling up our entire upper body, not just like the top of our lungs, and especially not in our throat. We have to feel like we're filling up from the bottom up. So the breathing exercise is pretty simple. It'll be in for 4, out for 4, then in for 4, out for 6, in for 4, out for 8, in for 4, out for 12, and then finally in for 4, out for 16. I will put the counts somewhere over here, just in case you guys get a little bit distracted or get lost. No big deal. So let's go ahead and get started with that. So we're going to go nice and slow at 80. That's a pretty good tempo. Ready, and 1, 2, ready, and. So we should have run out of breath on that 16th count. If not, then you need to be putting out more air. But that's good. It's good to have more air left over than running out too soon. So I hope we don't feel too lightheaded from that. It's not too crazy of a breathing exercise. It's always good to do those every now and then. I know we forget sometimes, or maybe we don't have the time to in band class. But I recommend doing them in your own individual practice. So on to the buzzing exercise. Buzzing is super important for brass playing. Even before you plug it into your instrument, it's good to do some buzzing exercises, some sirens, some pitch matching exercises. The mouthpiece is actually where all the work happens. This is the actual instrument. Your actual horn is the amplification matrix to whatever you're doing in your mouthpiece. So if you're able to play something on your mouthpiece, most likely it will translate to playing on the horn. So we're going to do a simple buzzing exercise right here. As you can see, there's a measure of teacher playing and a measure of student playing. It's 3 different pitches and a quarter rest. Those 3 pitches will not stay the same. I'm going to be changing them up. The notes that I'm going to be going in between are going to be middle C, second line G, and third space C. So what I will do is I will play 3 pitches, then you will play after me, a call and response. And you're going to try to match my pitches as best as possible. When we do buzzes, we have to make sure that they are as slippery as possible. So we need to hear everything in between each note. So for example, we can't go, it should be, so you heard every noise in between, every pitch in between. So that's super important. So when you buzz, it's really pushing that air and trying to get everything in between, trying to sound like a siren, honeybee hybrid thing, okay? So let's try this buzzing exercise. Pretty simple, we'll do a few, and just try your best to match me. 1, 2, ready. So some pretty simple stuff like that is a very good way to start your day before even getting to your instrument. You can experiment with your own buzzing exercises, trying to buzz as low as you can, as high, without any forcing. Okay, so if you feel like you're really forcing something, then don't do it. Kind of work your way up gradually, day by day. Okay, that's a good way to build your range before even getting to the instrument. So now for the lip slurs, make sure before we play, you make sure there's no water in there. So onto the lip slurs, we're going to add 2 more from the ones we did last week. We're going to add 2D and 2E. So they're a little bit more of an extended range one, especially 2D. It goes a little bit lower than we went last week. So just make sure that as we go lower in our range, all we're doing is keeping our embouchure the same, nice firm corners. We're just slightly dropping and pushing our lower jaw forward. Okay? It's very slight, it's nothing too crazy. You're just kind of slightly opening your teeth, and the note should pop out if you're using correct air. Make sure kind of play the lip slurs like a buzzing exercise. You're trying to get everything in between to make each harmonic pop out, each slot, each note to slot. So let's go ahead and try 2D. This one's going lower, so we're going to use that same descending valve combination, which is open, then 2, then 1, 1 and 2, 2 and 3, but today we're adding 1 and 3. Okay, so let's try 2D. And when we're playing this, I want the biggest, roundest, fattest sound possible. And 1, 2, ready. So I hope we were able to keep a nice, consistent, big sound throughout, from going higher to lower. If we were using the correct air and just slightly dropping our jaw, those bottom notes in the middle should have just popped right out. So let's try moving on to exercise 2E. This one is an ascending exercise, so we're going higher this time. So we will be using the same valve combination going up, starting with open, then 2, 3, 1 and 2. Trigger 1, trigger 2, and then trigger open. Again, my bad. All of them use trigger except the first one. The first open one is totally open, and all the other ones use trigger. I will make sure to put the valve combinations up top. So let's try 2E. Now, as we're going higher, we have to make sure to stay nice and relaxed, and we're just using nice, focused air. As we're going higher, I want you to imagine your air as a laser beam going through your instrument, and you're trying your best to not let the air touch the insides, like the walls of your instrument. You try to just make a laser straight through. So keep that kind of focus with your air, and as we go up, it should be a little bit easier. Instead of trying to force it and like getting all tense, just stay as relaxed as possible with nice, focused air. So let's move on to exercise 2E. 1, 2, ready. So I hope we were able to stay relaxed and we were able to get up to our high F nice and comfortably. So now on to my favorite part of today's lesson. We're going to be doing some low range slurs. So I'm going to be pushing us just a little bit. You will be singing notes that you're not used to singing that you probably won't see in middle school band music. But it's good to be able to be in that range. When we work on our low range, it helps us keep a nice set embouchure so that our high range gets better. So if you don't work on your low range, your high range probably won't get better. And that's the range that we really want to get set as you guys move on to high school, because the music there is more demanding in range and you start going above the staff. So working on your low range is really going to help that and build a nice foundation for that. Also, playing low on horn is super fun. Sometimes you can play lower than some trombone players, and I think that's pretty cool. So with this exercise, all the fingerings are labeled for the notes, so you don't really need to be able to recognize them right now at this moment. I would like us to maybe review our fingering charts and try to play around with those notes as well. But when we get to the notes that have parentheses on them, please use those fingerings. Don't use the fingerings with trigger on them. I would like you to keep using the non-trigger F-side fingerings for that. I would like to have this be a play with me exercise. So you're going to play at the same time as me, and you're going to try your best to match me. Remember, as we go lower, all we're doing is dropping our jaw and pushing our bottom jaw forward. We're not really doing anything too much with our embouchure. So remember that. So let's try this together, our low range slurs. 1, 2, ready. So if we found ourselves getting a little shaky and maybe not responding as well, that's fine. I would like you guys to try it again if that was the case, because the low range, like I said before, is like breaking in a new pair of shoes. So if you don't really play low, it's never going to get better. Just like if you don't wear your new shoes, they're not going to become comfortable. So you need to work on it as much as possible. So if you want, you can redo this exercise over and over and over till it is comfortable. Remember, low range is going to take a lot more air than playing in our normal range, you know, in the staff, a little bit below the staff. So make sure to gas up really well and conserve your air and be smart about it. I recommend with this exercise for you guys to play as loud as possible because it will help breaking the notes better. Your tone quality for this exercise when playing loud isn't the most important thing. It's about being able to make the notes pop out. So if you feel the need to, go ahead and rewind and do the exercise one more time. So I'll show you. This is an example of playing as loud as possible and just trying to get the notes to speak. It's not going to sound too great. So it doesn't sound super pretty and it sounds a little shaky, but it'll help my lips respond. Here is an example of playing pretty low and doing that. So it's not the most pleasant sound, but it definitely helps the notes speak. Remember, you're trying to keep this as firm as possible. So for the last thing today, we're going to do things, something called Glissandos. So Glissandos is when it's kind of like a buzzing exercise, but on our horn. So we're starting on one note and then playing through each harmonic till we get to the next note that is our main goal. So for example, the first one down here is from middle C to third space C. The point for this is for you to hear every single note in between. So this is a good example. So you heard first C, then E, G, that flat B flat, and then C. You heard all of those in between, versus just jumping from C to C. That's what I don't want. I want to hear everything in between. So let's try this. I will play, and once I stop, you do the same note. Then I will play the next set, then you play. So it's an I play, you play. We're going to be going all the way up from G to G. That'll be the highest we go today. So just listen for me first, and get ready to play. So make sure when we get up higher that we're still getting every note in between and staying as comfortable as possible. Remember, it's lots of just pushing air. So these glissandos will end up becoming things in music that composers like to write in called horn rips. So it's like a super cool sound that only horn players can make, and it's a pretty epic, you know, you kind of just slur all the way up, you do a glissando, and it's like a really cool effect. It's pretty cool sounding. It's like very jarring and kind of epic. There's some pieces of music that maybe you'll get to play later that have those. So practicing glissandos are a good way to kind of prep for that. Also work on our accuracy and getting to the correct note at the end of it. So hopefully we are able to work on these on our own. I recommend looking back at these, especially the low range exercise. And I'll be making sure to post the PDF of it for your band director to give you if you ask them for it. But I will see you guys next week, actually later this week for the scale lesson. So thank you guys very much.